Hello and welcome to this lecture all about variables. Let's get into it. Okay, so I've quickly made a project just including the normal IO stream and including string. So now I've got our int main in here. And yeah, let's start adding some stuff. So first of all, let's look at how do you use variables. So we already know you can just use std : if I can type, cout, and then some text. And we also know that you can type text and another text. Okay. So now what you can also do is, for example, type in value is equal to, and then a variable here. So let's look at how do we declare this variable. So first of all, you will need a type. Then you'll need the name. Then you can optionally set it equal to value, but you can also later say that the name is equal to value. So that is how you declare a variable. So we have quite a lot of different types. So let's first off start off with numbers. And these are only the basics, by the way, nothing complex. So let's start off by integers. This is just a normal number, natural number, whatever you want to call them. So this will be a 1, -1, -2, -5, whatever. So now let's call this myInt. And let's immediately set it equal to 78046. And let's say myInt in here. And let's change this text to myInt is equal to, and let's see what this gives us, is equal to 78046. So now let's give it this number, and let's run it again. And as you can see, it's changed again. So that is an integer. Let's now talk about float. So float, let's call it myFloat. And let's set it equal to a number with a decimal. So let's say, for example, 52.46. And let's also print this out. So my float is equal to, let's also type my float in here. So let's run that. And we didn't make a new line. Let me quickly do that. Yay, it took our value. Let's now keep it like this, and let's move on to the letters or words. A float, by the way, can't handle like this because it will probably tell us, oh, it's already saying double to float. But essentially, if you have such a really big number, you should use double. Only Visual Studio is already helping us. So let's revert that back. And let's start off with char. So char stands for character. And let's call this my char. Let's now try the other way of initializing our variable. So let's say my char is equal to, and now you've got these, but you've also got these. If you have a single letter, I didn't decide any of this, this is the C++ laws saying how this is needed. If you have a single letter, you need to use these. So let's say A. And let's now type this out like this. Let's say my char is equal to my char. So let's now build this and run it. as you can see, it's equal to a, and what if we would use the other ones? As you can see, it's coming out with all of these errors. So for these, you have to use... Oh, come on. So for a single letter or for a char, you will have to use this. And now it should run again. So now we also have, which you might have seen before, the string, which is for saving words. So let's say std : std : string. Let's name it my string. And let's set it equal to my beautiful string. Or something like that. And let's print that out. So my string is equal to my string. No, not my char, my string. Like this. Now let's run this. So my int is equal to that number there. My float is equal to 52.46. My char is equal to a, and my string is equal to my beautiful string. So now also when we're working with logic, we have booleans. And a boolean is a very simple variable type that can only store true or false. So let's in here put our bool. Let's call this my bool. And let's say my bool is equal to true or equal to false. And I won't quite show you how this works because we will need to get into if statements and all of that, which will soon be coming up. So yeah, that is how a boolean works, and it should compile. So those are the most basic types that you may need. So remember on that console you couldn't see bool. So let's quickly recap what we did. So you declare a variable with first putting its type, so for example int, then its name, so let's say my so cool int. Then optionally you can put an equal to and then its value. Or if you don't do that, you will have to go on another line or wherever you want to put a value into that variable and type its name equals value. So which types did we cover just now? Well, we just covered the int to save numbers, the float to save numbers with a decimal point, and also the double very briefly if you have an awful lot of numbers after your decimal point. Then we went into char to save a single letter, and remember you have to use those commas with only one, not two of them. And then we went into string where you did actually have to use these two of them. So after that we covered boolean, which wasn't quite that clear because I can't quite show you that, but hang on to the next lecture and I hope to show you something about booleans then. So now we've learned about these variables, let's also talk about magic numbers and const or constants. So let's start off with magic numbers. Numbers with magic. No, it isn't quite that simple or quite that complex. It's probably actually more simple. So what a magic number essentially is something coded into your code. Yeah, coded into your code. Makes total sense. So, for example, if I would say if, and then, for example, my int equals, and this if, just ignore it for now. This here, this 542, is a magic number that's hard-coded, into your code, and it isn't quite such a good practice to do this. And why would that be? Well, if you would want to change that, who says you wouldn't have a second one with exactly the same code? This just isn't good practice, you should never do it. So if you have a number basically greater than something like 1 or something in your code, just delete that number and replace it with a variable. So here you could, for example, have my second int, and what was the value? Let me quickly copy that. Let's put my second int, which of course isn't working, just like always. But anyhow, so a magic number is a number that you shouldn't have in your code, and if you do, you have been a bad boy. So now we have our constant. So a constant is essentially saying, for example, if I would make a constant integer here, and I cannot spell const, yes, that is why. I am essentially saying to the computer, you know that int here, I am making this constant, I am not going to change it. So you're promising to the computer that you won't change that, and the computer will say, okay, that's fine. So now let's try and run this. As you can see, the code runs perfectly fine. But what if I would copy this quickly and try to put it to something else? It's already giving us those red lines. And it won't compile. So it must be modifiable, so it's giving all of these errors because you broke the promise with your computer. The computer is mad at you. You promised that you wouldn't change that. How dare you change that? So this is essentially just a sort of security feature for your own code so that you can't change something like, for example, that magic number, which has to always stay perfectly the same. And why would you use this? Well, what if I would essentially have a variable called maximum guesses? I wouldn't want our game just suddenly changing the maximum amount of guesses, wouldn't I? I only want it to be allowed to see the amount of guesses. So that is a case where you could possibly use a constant integer, and this also works for other variable types, but I just use the int here. So let's quickly look at that again. A magic number is a number in a code that you've hard-coded into that is greater than just a very small value like 0 or 1. So for example, 564. And why wouldn't you want to use this? Well, yeah, it kind of sucks if you would want to change this, and you only changed it in 1 out of the 10 positions because you forgot how your code works, and you found out that your code didn't work anymore. So then we also have the constant, and this is essentially giving the promise to your computer that you wouldn't change that value. This is just a security feature for your own code because your code can become really weird and get a mind of its own. So yeah, I hope this concludes this. If it did, please like, share, and subscribe.